Well, families of the victims certainly filled this courtroom today in what was an absolutely emotional morning, not just hearing, but seeing a man who changed their lives forever. Ryan Hughes joins me now with more on reaction from the court and the support from one another as all of these loved ones hugged each other as that testimony was read in court this morning and another legal chapter of this case turned. Ryan?
And Jay, despite that apology in court today, many families that we spoke with had no sympathy for the man they call evil and violent. They say that his statement that he made in court was calculated and useless. As you mentioned, it was a very emotional day as details of the shooting were read aloud minute by minute. And at times, many of these families relying on one another for sympathy and support. Walking out of the courtroom in Broward County hand in hand.
I miss him dearly. He should be here today.
Tom and Gena Hoyer remembering their son Luke on this emotional and difficult day as they take one step closer to justice.
He was my surprise baby. And I always used to say, because he was so funny and cute, we would laugh. And I go, what would we ever do without him? He wasn't planned. And now I have to live those words.
Luke was only 15, walking back to class from the library when he was shot and killed inside Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
It was probably the most uncomfortable thing, well, second most uncomfortable thing we've ever had to do.
Wednesday morning, parents reliving the pain and torture as their child's killer pleaded guilty to murdering 17 people inside the high school. Tony Montaldo wearing a picture of his daughter, Gina Rose, close to his heart.
There's no moving on, there's moving around the pain that we feel every day. The loss of our daughter affects my wife, myself, and our son, and our entire family.
And many of the families who have bonded over tragedy sitting next to one another in court, comforting each other as descriptive details were read aloud of how the massacre was carried out. Now, as the focus in this case shifts to the penalty phase, many grieving parents say they hope the jury chooses the right punishment.
And the person you saw in there today chose to take his life, and he does not deserve life in prison. Life in prison is a life, and he deserves nothing more than the death penalty.
And outside that courtroom, many of those families telling me they plan to spend the rest of today visiting their child, their son, their daughter at the cemetery. They have turned their grief into action, and they say they plan to see this case until the very end. As we mentioned, the next step is now the penalty phase, jury selection, slated to begin after the new year. Live this afternoon in Fort Lauderdale, Ryan Hughes, WPTV, News Channel 5.